A sepia-toned aerial view of soundstage's ripples and waves, rotating to become a golden WB within a shield-shaped frame, set against the cloudy blue sky. A gold band encircles it, displaying the words, Warner Brothers Pictures, and below, a Time Warner Company. A red glow illuminates rolling clouds. Words appear. Warner Brothers and Producers Sales Organization present a Baron Eichinger Baron Schaefer's production, a Wolfgang Petersen film. The title appears, The NeverEnding Story. Noah Hathaway, Barrett Oliver, and introducing Tammy Stronach. Moses Gunn, Patricia Hayes, Sidney Bromley, executive producers Mark Damon, John Hyde. Supervising sound editor Mike Lemaire, GBFE. Dark clouds of vapor form and disappear in the sky. Music composed by Klaus Doldinger and Giorgio Moroder. Editor Jane Seitz. Screenplay by Wolfgang Petersen, Herman Weigel. Director of Photography Joost Vacano, VBK. Directed by Wolfgang Petersen. In a bedroom, a young boy springs up from his pillow. He looks around the room. With muffled hair, he eyes an alarm clock on a nightstand, then turns to an open book by his pillow. He puts it in his lap, then places a bookmark inside. In a kitchen, a man in a suit and tie grabs a pitcher. Orange juice bobs inside the pitcher. At the table, Bastian strains to open a jar of jam. The man leaves the juice on the countertop and grabs the jam. Winking at Bastian, he opens the jar, then turns back to the counter. He pours the juice into a blender. The father raises an egg to the lip of the blender, then pauses. He holds the lid of the blender closed as he watches Bastian pore over the book in his lap. Bastian butters a slice of bread as his father takes a swig of the smoothie. Bastian's dad picks up a newspaper, then seats himself at the table. The mustached dad eyes the young boy, who fidgets. Bastian clamps his eyes shut. The father takes a sip. They smile. He tussles the boy's hair. Later downtown, Bastian lugs a backpack through a crosswalk. Three bullies corner Bastian. They chuckle with buck-tooth grins. He bolts down the intersection, then down an alleyway. They snag him in a headlock in front of a dumpster. They dump him in the trash. A bully in a red hat pounds the lid closed. Bastian lifts the lid with debris in his hair. On the sidewalk, he wipes himself off as he leaves the alley. Backpacks bounce as the bullies plow through pedestrians. A man drops a milk bottle. Bastian throws open a door. He ducks behind and peers outside through its window as the bullies jog past. Then he slouches against the door. Jolting up, Bastian walks over. In an antiquarian bookshop, tucked behind stacked volumes, an old man reads in an armchair. With his back to the door, he withdraws a pipe from his lips and leans forward, then turns to the boy. Bastian counts on his fingers. The old man gestures him over. The boy shrugs into his crossed arms. The man jabs a fist. He returns to his book. Looking over the man's shoulder, the young boy steps closer. The bookseller holds the book to his chest. He drags a clawed hand through the air. He sets the book on his desk under a periodical. He points a finger at the boy, then walks away. Bastian eyes the book. Keeping an eye on the bookseller, he inches closer to the desk. He slides the Gazette aside. A bronze double Ouroboros medallion imprints into the center of the book's leather-bound cover. The title reads, The NeverEnding Story. Behind office windows, the bookseller hangs up. He watches Bastian swipe the book with a grin. On his desk, a scrawled notepad reads, "Don't worry, I'll return your book." In a middle school hallway, Bastian sprints with his bag and clutches the book zipped inside his jacket. Slowing down, he examines a door. A projector sits on a chair nearby. He sets down his bag and steps onto the chair. He peeks into a window slit at the top of the door. In a classroom, children study at their desks. He scampers up the hallway stairs to a red door. He fumbles for a key through a broken access box labeled Attic. He unlocks the door and enters. He reopens the door to remove the key from the lock. In the schoolhouse attic, light beams through rafters. A skeleton hangs in the corner. Dusty shelves line the walls. Bastian drops his bag, then pulls a gym mat under the skylight. He sits cross-legged on the mat and stares at the book's cover. His face lights up as he turns to the first page. Nighttime in the howling forest. A giant snail's tendrils perk up as it grazes. A man in a burgundy top hat and tuxedo turns from his meal. A bat snores upside down, and a hobgoblin peeks from a burrow. The posse stir from their campsite. Trees topple under a stone steamroller. The camp in its path, the steamroller grows large in the distance. The goblin runs to the snail as the man panics around the fire. Dwarfing the campsite, the stone roller screeches to a halt. The sleeping bat dangles. The posse looks up. A building-sized rock creature rests its hands on the handles of the contraption. The man nods and comforts the snail. The rock man dismounts. He rolls his vehicle back. Dust flies and the ground shakes as he takes a seat. He reaches over the group. He tears a boulder from the ground and holds it before his rocky grin. The goblin skitters to the man. The limestone boulder crumbles in the rockbiter's mouth. Sparkling chunks pummel the posse below. A smaller one falls above the snail. Rockbiter covers his mouth. He rubs his stone belly. His stony eyes sink. He eats another stone. The goblin jolts as a rock lands inches from his head. Nighthawk clicks his tongue as they peer around. Nighthawk readies a trapeze. The snail speeds off. The snail glides through the forest. The bat flaps past Rockbiter's face. He bends down, then pauses. In the distance, black clouds eat away the sky. Trees bend, uprooted in the wind. Mouth agape, Rockbiter's eyes widen. The steamroller charges forth as trees rip from the soil. Dusk, above clouds, the sun paints the sky orange. Jaw dropped, Nighthawk hangs from the bat's trapeze. Nighthawk swoops the bat into the clouds. Beyond withered trees, the snail rider zips over desert sands. He helps the gastropod. The Rockbiter rolls to a stop behind them. The sun exits a red sky behind a shimmering white tower. Nighthawk smacks the bat. Below swirling clouds, surreal rock formations jut around the tower. Light glows inside the rocky claw. 3 discs crown the top of the spire, forming a platform which beams piercing light. On the platform, 3 shells support a floral chamber. Nighttop closes in. In the chamber, an ancient man blocks light through a doorway, his flowing white mustache draping onto his robes. Outside, the shell interiors form a step auditorium terrace. He exits the chamber to a crowd. Nighttop climbs into a cross-shaped hole in the wall. The bat hangs upside down beside him. Otherworldly beings rouse. Nobles with 4 faces for heads nod. Nighthawk puckers, statue head beings shiver. On the promenade, he holds up a hand to the crowd. In the real world, Bastion lifts his gaze from the book. He examines his bag. A scene of an indigenous American hunter aiming a bow at running buffalo is embroidered on the pouch. He tosses the bag and grabs the book. The crowd part to form a pathway to the steps. A cloth quiver hangs on the shoulders of a young boy with long dark hair. He heads down the aisle as the crowd gathers behind him. His hair flips as he turns to leave. He pauses at the foot of the steps. The man gestures, and the young boy returns. Bow in hand, Atreyu ascends the ivory stairs. Atreyu hangs his head, clamps his eyes shut, and gulps. He sets his bow on the steps and removes his quiver. The old man beckons Atreyu to come forth. The robed man holds up a silver and gold Ouroboros medallion. He places the chain around the boy's neck. Bastian flips the book closed. The twin snakes imprinted on the cover match the likeness of the Orin. The Orin glistens on Atreyu's chest. Bastian crosses his hands over the book. In the desert, dust trails Atreyu from the tower. At dusk, he zooms past Rockbiter and the messenger's camp. Mountains silhouette him in the distance as he gallops across barren plains. A rainbow falls in the distance behind rocky pinnacles. His horse bounds over grassland toward the sedimentary stratum. At night, lightning breaks over a forest cave. Rain pours over the blackness of the cavern. Two luminous green eyes shine in the darkness. A lightning flash exposes a massive wolf. It charges from the cave. Later in daytime at a creek, Atreyu lays in a bed of grass, while Artax grazes. Artax nuzzles Atreyu's neck. He wakes. In the attic, Bastian sits up and grabs his backpack. He pulls out a sandwich and takes a bite. In the forest, Atreyu feeds Artax. Bastian puts away his sandwich and opens the book. Atreyu rides atop Artax. They ride past towering snow-capped mountains. Pink and gray clouds cover the sky. They ride through a white sand desert. Stone juts out from the ground in a river as Atreyu and Artax gallop. The green-eyed wolf growls, a hazy bog from inside the cave. A black haze coats the sky. Dead trees hang limp in a swamp. Atreyu slows Artax. Artak stops in a muddy swamp. Atreyu dismounts and pulls on his reins. They trudge heavily through the thick mud. Artax grinds his bit. Atreyu tugs him along. Atreyu yanks on Artax's reins. He turns to find the horse standing in the mud. Mud rises around Artax's body. He yanks on the reins. Artax doesn't budge. Later, with Artax gone, Atreyu sits alone in the mud. He stares at the swamp. Tears stream down his cheeks as he stares into the swamp. In the real world, tears stream down Bastian's face as he holds the book. He wipes his nose with the sleeve of his shirt, then pulls out a tissue and holds it to his nose. Bastian turns the page. With heavy steps, Atreyu trudges through the muddy swamp. Atreyu's steps falter. His eyes widen as he beholds a brown, dome-shaped mountain. Eyes narrowed, Bastian lifts his head. Through the haze, Atreyu climbs up the mountain. Decrepit tree branches stick out from the summit. Atreyu reaches the top and stands. He reaches out a hand and grasps one of the dying branches. He scans the swamp and the mountains beneath him. The mountain trembles as Atreyu clings to the tree branches. It rises, and his legs buckle. The mountain tilts, and the tree branch breaks off. The young warrior tumbles down the mountainside. He falls into the muddy swamp. Glancing over his shoulder, he quickly crawls away from the mountain, then climbs a thin tree. Mouth agape, his eyes widen as he stares at the mountain. A giant tortoise head peeks out, revealing its shell to be the mountain. Atreyu and the tortoise glance around. In the real world, Bastion's mouth hangs open. In Fantasia, Morla opens its mouth. Atreyu's head whips left and right. Morla's eyes widen and glow. The sneeze knocks Atreyu out of the tree. Atreyu rests his forehead against the tree's trunk. Back in the attic, Bastion jolts up. In the hallway, a teacher closes a classroom door. As students file out of the school, Bastion peeks his head around the corner. He takes a deep breath, then turns, and slowly trudges up the staircase. He enters the attic through the red door. The lights go out, plunging the hallway into darkness. Lightning casts a blue glow on Bastian's face, illuminating the taxidermy animals and skeleton in the attic. He grabs the book and his bag, and sprints out. He turns back. He runs and tumbles to the floor. A taxidermy wolf head falls. In the swamp of sadness, Atreyu's body sinks as he trudges through the mud. Mud covers his face and body. His eyelids heavy, he stomps along. He falls. The wolf races through the swamp. With gritted teeth, Atreyu pulls himself through the waist-deep sludge. Atreyu reaches for a branch as the wolf sprints. The black clouds swirl and glow red. Atreyu tilts his wide eyes skyward, where a luck dragon sweeps out of the luminescent clouds. It glides through the sky. Atreyu's body sinks beneath the mud. He reaches his hand up, and the luck dragon sweeps him into the air. The wolf lunges for him, and misses. In the attic, Bastian flops onto his back. He sits up, wraps his jacket around his shoulders, and pulls the book close. Atreyu awakens beside the large paw of the furry pink luck dragon. The luck dragon sleeps beside him. Atreyu peers at his face. His eyes widen. Then he slowly lifts the paw. The luck dragon opens one eye. His ears draw back, and his eyes open. Atreyu stands and creeps away. Atreyu turns and stares. With a smile, Atreyu approaches Falkor, then points to the back of its neck. The boy rounds to face Falkor. They glance toward a cave with a red glow. Atreyu stands and walks toward the cave. Inside, candles flicker and cauldrons bubble as a pointy-eared, white-bearded man sits at a table. The man sketches in a notebook, then refills his quill with ink, revealing a drawing of two sphinxes. He frowns as a woman enters and tosses ingredients into a cauldron. Nearby, Atreyu smiles. He takes a cup, brings it to his nose, grimaces, then drinks. The man approaches the young warrior. He holds up a finger. The wench turns a large wheel. Angiwook floats in a basket. They climb atop the observatory and approach a large telescope. Atreyu looks through the lens at two golden sphinxes guarding a gate. Atreyu peers through the lens as a knight in shining armor approaches the gate. The eyes shoot beams of light at the knight. The knight falls to the ground. Atreyu's eyes widen, and he pulls himself away from the telescope. He runs off. Atreyu climbs down. Enkiwuk runs to his telescope and watches Atreyu walk toward the gate. Atreyu glances back, then ambles closer to the sphinxes. Atreyu steps off just before the gate. He stares at the glowing sphinxes, then clutches the oren around his neck and closes his eyes. He releases the oren and opens his eyes, then walks toward the gate. He glances up. The sphinx's eyes remain shut. Above, the body of the knight lies sprawled on the ground. Atreyu gulps and stares at him. He glances between the sphinxes. His eyes lower to the skeletal bones that litter the sand beside the knight. He clenches his eyes shut. Atreyu slowly steps toward the gate, stopping beside the knight's body. The knight's helmet blows open, revealing a charred face. Atreyu jumps back, glancing up as Enkiwuk rushes forward. The eyes on the Sphinxes open and glow bright. Atreyu grits his teeth and sprints. The Sphinxes fire as he dives forward, landing on his belly wide-eyed. The wench falls onto Falkor. With his arm raised above his head, Atreyu trudges through a thick blizzard. The wind whips through the boy's hair as he pauses, gazing into the storm. Atreyu approaches an icicle-covered mirror, which juts out of the ground. Snow covers its rounded edges. Snow falls around him as he takes small steps forward. His reflection in the mirror comes into view. Atreyu furrows his brow. He stands before the mirror and gazes at his reflection. The mirror's reflection gives way to the attic, where Bastian furrows his brow as he pores over the book. Atreyu glances up, his eyes widening, as he stares into the mirror. In the attic, wide-eyed Bastian stands and throws the book. He shakes his head and turns away. He stops and glances at the book. He picks up the book. In the snowstorm, Atreyu steps closer to the mirror. He lays his hand on the glass, then quickly pulls away. He steps inside the mirror. In the darkened attic, Bastian strikes a match and lights candles. He lies on his stomach, grabs the book, and furrows his brow. Now, Moonlight glows above Atreyu. He approaches a set of blue glowing sphinxes. Sweat coats his face and chest as he walks. Atreyu stares up at the sphinxes. Rocks fall from the sphinxes. Pieces of the sphinxes crumble. Atreyu turns and runs. Atreyu rides atop Falkor over fluffy white clouds. Falkor dips and soars through the blue sky. They fly over a rocky terrain with bright blue waters. Atreyu pumps his fist in the air, then wraps his arms around Falkor as they soar toward the fading horizon. Atreyu grins as they fly over snow-capped mountains. The sun sets as they cruise over an ocean. Atreyu buries his face in Falkor's fur. They fly over a crystal blue river. In the attic, Bastian stares out the window. He closes the window shutters, then hops back to his spot beside the candles, wraps his jacket around himself, and opens the book. Black clouds explode in the sky. Atreyu clings to Falkor as he tumbles through the air. Blue lightning flashes through the darkened clouds. Atreyu falls from Falkor, tumbling through the air. In the attic, the window flies open. Shutters bang in the wind, sending papers scattering. Bastian rushes to the shutters. At the shutters, he pulls himself up a ledge and fastens a lock. He leans against the frame, his chest rising and falling. He jumps back to his spot and leans over the book. On a beach, waves kiss Atreyu's body as he lies on the shore. He glances around the black rocky cove, then looks down and taps his chest to find the Orin gone. He gets to his feet and looks up. Black clouds loom in the sky. Atreyu glances at paw prints in the sand. Meanwhile, Falkor flies along the coast. Atreyu stands in a crumbling coastal village. Atreyu leans against a rock, which moves beneath his touch. He backs away and stares up at the rock. Atreyu stares up at the rockbiter. Atreyu hangs his head. He looks up. Atreyu glances over his shoulder. Atreyu lowers his eyes with a sad nod. Later, he walks through the village. The ground splinters and cracks beneath, and pieces of rock fall beside him. Atreyu shields his eyes from the sand. He rounds a corner, his eyes widening as sunlight cascades through a crack in the wall. The light illuminates a mural of a priest giving a mask to a kneeling woman. Atreyu wanders further into the crumbling structure. He stares at another mural of a dark-skinned man atop a horse with a pointed bow and arrow. On another, Morla faces a boy who clings to tree branches. One mural shows Atreyu pulling his horse through the swamp. Another depicts him standing before the mirror. Rocks crumble around him as he moves through the structure. A final mural shows Atreyu riding Falkor. Atreyu sets his sights on a mural of a black wolf and walks toward it. Behind him, the black wolf lurks in a cave. He opens and closes his jaw. The rocks around them quake. Atreyu stares at the wolf with wide eyes. Blue lightning cracks across the darkened sky. The wolf's eyes widen as the wind blows and more rocks tumble. The clouds billow as lightning flashes. Atreyu and Gamork stare at each other. Atreyu wields a shard of rock. Gamork lunges at Atreyu as sand swirls in the air. Atreyu shoves him back, driving a stone shard into Gamork's chest. Blood coating his body, Atreyu rises and runs. Elsewhere, a glimmering object shines in the ocean. Falkor dives, drifting along the bottom. He swims toward the glimmering object, gripping the oarin with his mouth. From the shore, clouds swirl overhead as Atreyu topples in the wind. Falkor soars through the sky. as Atreyu walks with his arms raised against the wind, then topples over. Rocks shake and fly in a gust of heavy wind. Atreyu grips a tree branch as the wind spirals around him, lifting his feet off the ground while he clings tightly. Tree branches, rocks, and sand are swept into the windstorm. The black clouds overtake the sky. Atreyu squints. Falkor flies toward Atreyu, who climbs onto the dragon's back. In the attic, Bastion lifts his wide eyes from the book, his lips parting. Fragments of rock and land drift through the galaxy. Atreyu lies motionless atop Falkor as he flies through space. They pass through floating debris. Atreyu shuts his eyes and tightly grips the Orin, then releases it. It glows blue against his chest. The ivory tower shines on a piece of floating matter. In the attic, candlelight dances across Bastion's smiling face. He reaches for a green apple and takes a large bite, then pulls his coat over his head. Falkor flies toward the glimmering tower. Atreyu stares at the tower. In the attic, Bastion leans forward over the book. He flips a page and looks up. Bastion shoves a piece of the apple into his mouth. On the tower, Atreyu walks up a staircase toward a glowing door. Falkor winks at Atreyu, who turns to Falkor and gulps. He ascends the remainder of the staircase and approaches the door. Light radiates from inside. Falkor watches Atreyu enter. Golden light coats the walls inside. Atreyu walks forward. A young girl sits on a large, shimmering bench. They stare at each other. Wearing a diadem atop her head, she furrows her brow as she watches him remove the Orin from around his neck. The childlike empress shakes her head. Bastian jolts his head up as pieces of rocks float through space. In the tower, Atreyu and the Empress glance at the ceiling. Atreyu turns as a tower wall cracks. Bastian runs in the attic. The tower splinters. Atreyu falls on his back. The Empress looks around as tears well in her eyes. In the attic, the window and glass shatters. Bastian pulls his coat over his head. He presses his hand against the pages. Pieces of the tower fly off into space. The Empress looks to him. He jumps up, climbs to the window, and sticks his head out. Rain drenches Bastian. As flashes of lightning subside, the scene goes dark. The childlike Empress, Moonchild, holds out her palm. She cups the glowing grain of sand in her hand. She lifts her gaze to meet Bastian's. Bastian lowers his gaze. Moonchild slides her hand from Bastian's. The grain of sand radiates in his cupped palm. He looks to his glowing palm. He lifts his gaze. A smile forms on his face. They look up. He rides Falkor. They fly over snow-covered mountains. He points at the rockbiter. On the ground at a campfire, the night hobs point at Bastian and Falkor. Bastian waves. The rockbiter waves back. The mountains give way to a field. Atreyu rides atop Artax through the field. He waves at Bastian. Bastian leans into Falkor's ear. In the real world, the three bullies walk along the street. The bullies sprint away. The bullies turn down the dumpster alleyway and stop. They look over their shoulders. One of the bullies trips and tumbles into a pile of trash. The other two climb into the dumpster. The two bullies slowly lift the lid. Eyes wide and full of trash, they share a look. Audio description provided by AudioVault. Transcribed, edited, and voiced by Kyle Warwick-Mathieu. Credits roll.